today's video I am going to do a boat tour of Skismo, my 1976 GP14. I had someone ask about the bow hatch that they'd seen on the previous video, so I thought I would cover that, and also while I'm here doing that I'll run through all the other bits and pieces that I've put on the boat since buying it. I bought it about 5 years ago and it was a bare bones boat. It was just a jib, genoa, mainsail. It didn't have any reefing lines in it, and that was it really. And over this time I have added all sorts of things to it to make it a very capable seaworthy dinghy cruising boat. So I'm not sure the best way to go through this, so I think I'll just make it straightforward for myself and start at the front and work my way to the back. So right at the front of the boat, the first thing I have is this stainless steel S hook, and all that is holding this mechanism here, which is a rope and a cleat, which is fastened to the handle of my launch trolley. And all that does is it helps keep the bow of the boat down onto the launch trolley, and I don't have to use my painter. So when I'm launching at a jetty or pontoon, I can secure the boat to the launch trolley while I'm in the process of launching it, and the painter is free for either myself or someone else to hold on the pontoon. So that's a handy gadget. All you do is you pull that up, that releases the boat from the trolley. So next is the bow plate here. So this is the forestay, and that's fastened to the front pin, clevis pin on the bow plate. Now when I first got the boat, the genoa and the jib was just hooked onto the forestay with some hanks. I don't have them with me, but they're little clips that go through the luff of the sail, and you just twist them on and then pull them up the forestay. So for cruising, sometimes you need to approach a lee shore, so the wind is behind you, pushing you onto the shore, and if you're out in blowy conditions and you need to reduce the sail area, then you need a quick way of reducing your headsail. And so installing a furling drum and head was one of the first jobs that I did, and that enabled me to quickly furl up the headsail when I'm coming into a lee shore or coming into a pontoon, or just wanted to get rid of the headsail quickly. And also if it's blowing force 5, force 6 and you need to really reduce the headsail area, then you can reef it using the furling drum. So I got mine from a place called Trident UK, and it was a very easy install. The original setup, the halyard for the headsail came through this sheave here, back up here and onto this horn cleat, just like that, and then it was tensioned manually and then just cleated off. However, when there's a bit of the blow, no matter how much I try to tension this by hand, the luff of the headsail used to bow, and it made the sail a pretty awful shape and not very efficient. In conjunction with fitting the furling drum, I decided to fit the high field lever, which would give me a lot more tension and keep the luff of the headsail straight and shapen the sail properly. So now the halyard, instead of going through the sheave at the bottom of the mast, it just comes out here. I hook that onto there, and then I can tension that really well, and then I just belay the extra line. Just hook that on there. Just hook that on there like that. So now, luff of the sail is really nice and tight and very straight. Now, the blue line, that is cold water mains pipe, plastic piping used in the building industry, and it's the perfect material for helping keep the sail tidy when you want to furl it or if you want to reef it. There is a video that I've made that explains how that was fitted and how to do so. I will leave a link to that video in the description below, or it might be on the screen somewhere here. But it's important that you get good tension on the luff of the head sail, especially with this pipe fitted, otherwise it won't do its job, because it naturally wants to twist, and all the good tension on it keeps it nice and straight. So that brings us now to why this hatch is on the deck. When I first fitted the high field lever and got tension on this, the bow plate was lifting off the deck, and this back screw here was loose, and there was no way I was going to be able to get to that without putting a hole in the deck. So that's why this was here. This is an old hard disk drive. Why have I got an old hard disk drive, I hear you all ask? Well, inside one of these is one of these. That is a hard disk drive, and it's the perfect diameter to keep the forestay away from the luff of the sail, and it's really very solid as well, really sturdy. So I just fastened that to the swivel head of the furling kit. I used a bit of perspex, see on the back there, a bit of perspex, a couple of bolts, and that just sits through there, and then the shackle goes on there, and then the halyard fastens to this D shackle. I shall put that up in a second, but that is perfect. With the correct tension on the head sail now, you'll see that the forestay is all slack. So when I'm setting this up for the first time, I put the head sail up first and tension it using the high field lever, and then I pull my forestay tight just so there's a gap between the luff of the sail and the forestay, and that is enough to keep the two from getting entangled with each other when I'm furling. So now that's done, the furling line comes from the furling drum. It comes straight out to a fairlead, which I put on the deck, and this comes with the kit. So does this line, of course. Now mine runs over my washboard here, and then onto a cleat on the deck. so I've got easy access to it. But what I have found is, if you look there, it's wearing a groove in the top of the washboard. So what I'm going to do when I come to renovate these bits, which will be done this winter, is I'm going to put a hole, I think, in here, so it'll just run through the hole and have like a barrel that goes through the wood. And the other thing I might do is move this forward to the end of the deck. Of course, I don't know if you can see there, but that's doing the same thing on the gel coat there. It's wearing it away, where people pull it down there like that. So if that was right on the edge, then this rope would hang off the cleat rather than off the end of the deck and prevent that from happening. Okay, next on the boat is we've got this fairlead here. Now that is used for directing the anchor warp when I put the anchor out. I've got the hatch, put that back on. Then I've got another fairlead here fastened to the middle of the deck, and that's where my painter is fastened to. So when I'm using my painter, that comes forward through the fairlead there. And also, a good tip is the length of your painter should be about the length of the boat. And the reason for doing that, if you fit an outboard motor to your boat, you don't want the end of your painter getting wrapped up in your prop. So if you can't reach the prop, then that's never going to happen. So that's a handy little tip. Right, coming back a little bit further, I've got this hole in the point of the washboard there. That is purely for my boom tent, which I will come to later. I have got this blue line here, which if we look up goes all the way to my masthead float. So coming further back, now inside the boat, you can see here, take that off. So these hooks, they were screws which are holding the washboards down, but I just replaced them. So I replaced the screws for these eye hooks, which give me anchor points for things like my water bowser, my bucket, my anchor bucket. And then there's all this space at the front of the boat. This is the bow buoyancy tank on this GP14, and that space up ahead is where I keep fenders, keep the support for the boom when I'm using my boom tent. I've got some hooks on the side that fasten up to. I have a decent paddle, so paddle lives up there and then just clips onto a clip there, keep that in place. But the most useful thing about all that space is it's where the majority of my oar goes. So I've got space for a pair of oars. So a bit further back now, here my anchor bucket. So I've got a Danforth anchor in there, an anchor warp, and then I use one of these lines from one of those hooks. So when it's not in use, that just goes through the handle like that, stays there, and then that just goes back up, clips on the eye and stops that going all over the place if in the event of a capsize. And then finally with the anchor, there's a hole in the bottom of the bucket where the anchor warp comes out, and then that's fastened with the bowline around the bottom of the mast. So also while we're up this end of the boat, I've got this Lexan waterproof case. Apparently you can drive over these with a Land Rover and they don't break. So in here I've got first aid kit, I've got binoculars, I've got an anemometer, I've got a plumb weight, box of matches, some tape, spare shackle there, a bit of line, and occasionally where I keep a spare bar of food, an energy bar or something. And that base is fastened to, I've put a piece of plywood underneath, which the this webbing, that webbing goes from here to the other side. It's underneath a piece of plywood which is screwed down on the underside of my floorboard. So that's although I can remove it, it's actually a permanent fixture. And then just to the side of that I've got this old kite bag. Inside the kite bag got some sun cream, don't need that now, not in the northern hemisphere, but in here I've got a card with an emergency radio procedures checklist, and then the rest of all my reefing lines for when I'm tidying up the sail around the boom when I'm not sailing. Also under here, if you can see where the shrouds come through the deck, the holes I'm not using, I've got one there for a soft shackle, and that there is the one end of a bungee for holding the oar in place. Underneath the oar, and then fastens on that last hole there, and then my soft shackle, that there is just a loop. Right, moving across the other side, I have my bilge pump, which I've cut a crescent out of the floorboard for that to sit in, so the bilge pump sits right where the water's at its deepest when there's water in, and then the pipe is just rests a hook under there, which that holds that in place when it's not in use. When it is in use, I just pull that out and shove that through the carry handle on the side of the boat. Now then on the starboard side I've got room for another bucket, and I also have a collapsible bucket, and these are both held in place by one of my strings that I use to hook up onto the eye. So in front of that, this is a chock that I've spoken about before on one of my Galley box videos. I'll leave a link in the description for that one. This is just for holding the Galley box in place, and this is also purpose built for holding the Galley box in place. I've then got another net bag. That's just a cheap laundry bag, which is fastened on the underneath the benches here. And I've just got some spare sets of gloves in there. God, those birds are so noisy today. And then before I forget, speaking of laundry bags, on this side, that's my kicking strap. On this side, this bag here is where I keep the excess main halyard. Once I've hoisted the mainsail, that sits in there. But behind that bag, I've got myself a emergency knife for cutting myself free if I get caught up in any ropes or anything, or indeed if anyone else gets caught up in any ropes. Right, now coming further back, here I've got a net bag on the back of the centreboard casing. And in here I've got a waterproof notepad. I've got another prompt card for emergencies. Got my radio license. I've got my Cockpit companion. Oh, and I've also got a spare compass. And just at the back there on the floor is my main compass. Then back here on the, well, on both sides actually, I have this Retrieval stirrup. So if I'm ever out of the boat and I need to get back in, I just wang these over the side. So when I put my foot in, it puts my hips at the perfect height so I can roll into the boat. And there's one of those on both sides. It lives on the bench there, and then next to that I've got a throwbag. I mean, that's not too essential, I suppose, but that's just a carry-on from my kayaking days. Oh, and not to forget my rowlock for when I've got the oars out. Right, so moving to the back, I have got these two drums. These are waterproof drums. One is empty at the moment, but I normally put my spare clothing in there, and my any camera equipment that I'm taking with me I'll put in there. That is full of spare ropes, and these are held on just by these, again, these soft shackles. So it's just a bungee, and then I've made a monkey fist on the end of these bits of paracord, so that just holds them in place. These just slide out, and I made these crescent supports, fastened them on the end of the floorboard to hold them in place. So that's how they work. And then here, get that out of the way, here I have a stern line for when I'm mooring up against a pontoon, so that just lives in the middle there. That also acts as a cushion when I'm towing the boat, because the mast foot can sit on that rope. Either side here, I'll come back to that in a second, either side here, this green fabric is my boom tent, so it's in 4 pieces. That, and then this cord here I fasten on my VHF radio, and on a calm day that just lives there like that. If there's any risk of me, if there's any real risk of me coming out the boat, if it's a heavy day, then I'll wear that on my buoyancy aid, but for a leisurely sail, that lives down there. One other thing I've got is this topping lift. That is anchored at the top of the mast, and I just fasten that on the end of the boom like so, and then that keeps the boom up. If I'm not sailing and I just want to wrap the boom round, or if I'm putting a reef in while I'm sailing, the topping lift is super handy. Speaking of reefing, here's my reefing lines. I've got 2 reefing lines. I've got where are we? I've got one line in there, and then I've got another one all the way up there, so it's quite a deep second reef. And to pull the reef in, all I have to do is release the halyard, and then I pull this toggle here, which, as you can see, as I pull that, it raises the sail at the end up to the first reefing point. So you can see there's my pulley there. My first reefing point is up there, so I keep pulling, and that goes. Now you can see that the first reef point is up on the end of the boom, and then I pull the front of the sail down, reefing cringle there, and on the other side of the mast I've got this piece which is anchored on the mast there. That goes through the cringle, so that comes through this side, and that goes onto this cleat here, and that is held down there. And then that's actually, I'll just check that, it's tight there. So that's actually sailable as it is, but then obviously I will curl the sail up. I then just tidy up the reefing line. That has a, I can belay that there like that. That goes on that hook. And then on the other side I can just pull the excess second reef line out of the way, and that just gets belayed on the other side as well. Finally, my latest addition is a waterproof chart bag, which I only got this the other day, so I haven't fastened it down yet, but that is I think that's going to live on the back here, because that goes underneath the tiller, and I can just lean over and read what I need to read on the chart. Just a couple more things I forgot to mention. One is I have removed the transom horse for the Traveller, being an aft sheet boat, because I had it set in the middle anyway, I never really changed it, but that allows me to put a rowlock on the transom, so I can actually, if I'm in a tight space and not sailing, I can use one of my oars for sculling. So that's why I've done that. And one more thing I forgot to mention is the blue bucket that I have at the front of the boat. That's where I would put my second anchor, my stern anchor. Oh, and then obviously there's my kicking strap, not to forget that, which just clips in there like that. Super easy. And finally, one more thing. I've got a couple of cleats either side of the rear of the centreboard casing, so that is a place it's very difficult one-handed. Oh. I can put my phone.